I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, the OPCW Douma report is falling apart. It's now, I think we can conclusively say without a shadow of a doubt that this was a false flag. Unfortunately, the mainstream media will never report that outside of Tucker Carlson, who has reported on it. But it's completely now 100% debunked, this chemical attack in Douma. Let me read you the WikiLeaks press release on this, that they've released part 3 of the fact that the OPCW was flat out lying about its findings and covering it up. And then you can take it from there. This is dated 14th of December 2019. OPCW Douma released part 3 via the WikiLeaks website. Today, WikiLeaks releases more documents showing internal disagreement within the OPCW about how facts were misrepresented in a redacted version of a report on an alleged chemical attack in Douma, Syria in April 2018. Among these is a memorandum written in protest by one of the scientists sent on a fact-finding mission, FFM, to investigate the attack. It is dated 14 March 2019 and is addressed to Fernando Arias, Director General of the organization. This was exactly 2 weeks after the organization published its final report on the Douma investigation. WikiLeaks is also releasing the original preliminary report for the first time, along with the redacted version that was released by the OPCW for comparison. Additionally, we are publishing a detailed comparison of the original interim report with the redacted interim report and the final report, along with relevant comments from a member of the original fact-finding mission. These documents should help clarify the series of changes that the report went through, which skewed the facts and introduced bias according to statements made by the members of the FFM. The aforementioned memo states that around 20 inspectors have expressed concerns over the final FFM report, which they feel, quote, did not reflect the views of the team members that deployed to Douma, end quote. Only one member of the fact-finding team that went to Douma, a paramedic, is said to have contributed to the final version of the report. Apart from that one person, an entirely new team was gathered to assemble the final report, referred to as the FFM core team. Straight from WikiLeaks, Alexander, once again, WikiLeaks doing the reporting that the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Washington Post, failed to do.
Absolutely, that's exactly right. I mean, that, of course, is why the founder and head of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, is in a prison in England, at Belmarsh Prison, and why he's been kept there, and why in conditions which we've discussed, deplorable conditions, and why there's this attempt to get him to the United States and to put him before a court and try him on charges which would put him in prison for 175 years. In other words, for the rest of his life. So let's not forget that. Let's not forget that without WikiLeaks, we would probably not be getting this kind of information, and that it is because of WikiLeaks that we know now how absolutely flawed and ultimately corrupt the entire OPCW investigation of Douma was. Now, amongst all this litany of material and facts that we've now had from the OPCW, and you're absolutely right to say the whole thing is unraveling, one number stood out for me: 20 inspectors. That looks like the entire team that was sent to Douma, with one exception, are unhappy with the final report and feel that it misrepresents their findings. And that suggests that it doesn't suggest, what it shows is that the inspectors went to Douma, discovered one set of facts, and the highly politicized secretariat in Vienna, the OPCW secretariat in Vienna, then put together an entirely different report based on a completely different set of largely invented facts. I find one of the most disturbing things about these papers, incidentally, is that drilling through what actually happened in Douma, the inspector said that some of the sort of symptoms that were being reported weren't really consistent with chlorine poisoning, but might have been consistent with sarin poisoning. I mean, these aren't actual symptoms that anybody from the team observed, but that were being reported by people who were in Douma, who were the people like possibly the White Helmets, people like that, who were there. They were who initially reported this chemical attack. So what it looks to me, and I am now guessing, so I don't want to say that I know this for a fact, but what it looks to me is that somebody tried to stage a false sarin attack in Douma. They didn't have the time because the town fell so quickly to the Syrian army, and the Russians were able to get the inspectors there extremely fast. So very hurriedly, they tried to change the story to one of chlorine poisoning. The inspectors came along to Douma and found that there were indeed traces of chlorine. But of course, chlorine regularly appears in urban environments, such as in Douma. And apparently the inspectors were extremely unhappy that these chlorine traces were reported at all, because they felt that they were so small as to be normal background chlorine, as you would expect in an urbanized setting. So it seems to me that that is what happened, an attempt to fabricate a sarin attack, which didn't quite come off, and instead a rapid reversal to try to make it look, trying to claim it was a chlorine attack instead. That's a theory. I don't want to push it too far because I'm theorizing. What is beyond dispute, what is now absolutely indisputable, is that the inspectors who went to Douma reported things that were completely different from what is in the final report, and that they are extremely unhappy by that report and the way that it misrepresents their findings.
Okay, so you're saying right now that a group, say maybe, I don't know, the White Helmets. Let me just theorize.
Yeah.
The White Helmets.
Yeah.
Wanted to stage another sarin attack like they did in, I don't know, say Ghouta or Khan Shaykhun.
Yeah.
I'm just theorizing, right?
Yeah.
Like they did in the past.
Yeah.
But because the city fell so quickly and the Russians, I think this is the key point, the Russians secured the city quickly and got inspectors in, their false flag sarin attack had to be amended. They had to call an audible, and they decided to fall back on some sort of chlorine attack where they scared some people at a hospital. They got some hoses, some video cameras, some kids crying, shoot it off to social media, to the New York Times, to the Washington Post, to MSNBC, to CNN, and get them to spread it, and then try to trigger another U.S. attack, a large U.S. attack against Assad. But the key there was the Russians and the Syrian army moving in quickly to secure it and get people on the ground, correct?
Absolutely right. I mean, that is the fundamental difference between Douma and all the other places where chemical attacks have been alleged. If you're talking about East Ghouta in 2013, or you're talking about Khan Shaykhun in 2017, the point to understand about those attacks is that the Russians, and we're really talking about the Russians here, the Russians weren't able to secure the crime scene. So all the investigations that took place in the case of East Ghouta, the inspectors did go to East Ghouta, but they took them a very long time to get there. And the whole, in fact, if you actually drill into the reports of what happened, it's fairly obvious that things had been manipulated there. I will say that there is no doubt at all that in East Ghouta, some sort of sarin attack did take place. But as I said, the ground was manipulated and controlled by the jihadi groups that were in control of that neighborhood at that time, and they were still in control when the inspectors were there. In Khan Sheikhoun, because Al-Qaeda was in control, the inspectors never went there at all, and the entire investigation was undertaken from a distance, with soil samples and body samples provided through a very complex chain of custody, which has never been satisfactorily sorted out, and which seems to have produced the results that some people wanted, despite the fact that there are many anomalies, especially on the timing of events, which even the OPCW, is important to say, has had to concede. So the difference between other attacks or alleged attacks and Douma is that the day after this happened, the Russians were there. They were on the ground. They were able to secure the crime scene. They were able to get the inspectors to go there, and the inspectors were able to do their job. And all this happened very fast, so there wasn't the time to manipulate or control the evidence, if that's indeed what happened. And frankly, as I said, to me, it looks exactly like what you said, that there was an attempt to create a appearance of a sarin attack, but there wasn't the time to complete it.
Okay, so given the fact that the OPCW was also involved in the Skripal hoax, which we still haven't gotten to the bottom of, now we have these revelations, which to me, I think it's kind of like the fruit of the poisonous tree kind of scenario, which you know best. I think it calls into questions Ghouta, Khan Sheikhoun, it calls into questions the Skripal case, all of it. The OPCW at this point in time needs to be defanged, needs to be dismembered, taken apart. This is a corrupt organization that almost got us into a world war on purpose. That is a fact.
Indeed.
The fact that they did this almost led us to a massive war between the United States and Syria, and in turn, Russia, which would have spread to Turkey, to Saudi Arabia, to God knows how else it could have gone wrong. The OPCW needs to be defunded, shut down, boarded up, period, end of story. Maybe I'm overstating things, but I think it's that serious.
Okay, let just to clarify one thing, which is about East Ghouta. I mean, some sort of chemical weapons attack did take place in East Ghouta in 2013. The OPCW inspectors did not make any attributions at that time. You can't fault them in the same way that you can for what they did in Khan Sheikhoun in 2017.
I think I'm saying what happened now is kind of...
But now, now we are in a completely different scenario. The Khan Sheikhoun investigation was completely wrong. I mean, it should never have been allowed. We should never have had a report in those terms. I mean, the whole report was completely manipulated. And the OPCW, the leadership of the OPCW, was responsible. What we didn't have with the Khan Sheikhoun investigation is the inside story. We don't have the full inside story about the Douma investigation, but we know enough. We know that the inspectors went to Douma, and their findings were not so much rejected, they were completely misrepresented. It made it seem that the opposite happened to what the inspectors themselves said. Now, that is extremely serious. That is very bad. And it does make you wonder about things like the Skripals, where the Skripal attack, where the OPCW is also involved. So, firstly, what needs to happen? We need to know exactly what happened in Douma. We need to have all of this information now out in the open. We need to have a complete, thorough investigation, not anymore, I'm sorry to say this, of what happened in Douma or of what happened in Khan Sheikhoun, but what is happening in the OPCW's own headquarters in Vienna, because it looks like the situation is extremely bad. And if we're going to preserve the OPCW, which in some form we must, because the OPCW was created to administer the Convention for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, which is a key arms control treaty. If we're going to have the OPCW fulfill its actual role, then firstly, it must be completely cleared up, and we must know exactly how what happened within the OPCW itself, and then it has to be comprehensively reformed in a way that doesn't allow certain of the major powers, Britain, France, the United States in this case, to basically gain control of it, because that seems to be what has happened.
Yeah, they almost led us to a war, a full-out world war.
Well, they did. I mean, they didn't just, firstly, I mean, there was a real possibility that there might be a shooting war, because the United States was launching, and Britain and France were launching missiles on Syria at a time when Russian troops are, as we know, in Syria, and where the Russians have a very advanced air defense system in Syria. And the Russians have previously warned that if their own troops are threatened by such missile attacks, they will retaliate, they will act. So, it was an extremely dangerous situation.
What if Hillary Clinton was president instead of Trump?
Well, it did. What if Hillary Clinton was president? What if Jim Mattis, who was the defense secretary at that time, had been a different personality? If he really had been, mad, whatever his name is, Mad Dog Mattis. I mean, he was being pressured by some of the hardliners on the National Security Council to take extreme acts, and he refused. And it was a few weeks later he was gone for completely different reasons. But if Mattis hadn't been there, if Trump hadn't been there, if we'd had Hillary Clinton and say one of the hardline neocons, an Ashton Carter figure, for example, still in charge at the Pentagon, this thing could go completely out of control. But we must not minimize anyway what happened. A missile attack was launched on a false pretext against a sovereign country. That already is a very serious violation of international law.
All right, Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button down below and click on the notifications bell to make sure you get notifications every time we push out a new video. And check us out on iTunes and on Soundcloud to get an audio copy of this video as well. You'll find links in the description box down below. And also check us out on duranvideo.com and bitshoot.com. We post all our videos on those other platforms as well, so check us out on there, and donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. Your donation really helps out this channel a lot. Look for us on Telegram. Subscribe to our channel. Download the Telegram app, where we post everything that goes on in the Duran community. And Alexander, the Duran shop, where we have a special deal, DRN20, 20% off all merchandise.
Indeed, and what wonderful things you can buy with that discount. I mean, can I just say, 20% off on magnificent magic mugs like this one. Beautiful to hold, beautiful to drink from. The absolute standby for me during the long hours of the night when I'm researching videos and keeping up with the news in the United States. And my magic mugs, I would not be without. I mean, I travel everywhere with them now because, I drink tea, coffee sometimes, My wife drinks hot chocolate, occasionally beer. These are the perfect mugs. I tried champagne, by the way, once at the suggestion of one viewer, and it turned out really well. So can I just say, this has the coat of arms of the Alpha Force, which is, of course, Russia's elite special forces unit, Russia's equivalent of the Navy SEALs and Delta Force and the British SAS. Alex also has his own mug there, which is the mug with, I think, there it is, yes, it's the mug with the double-headed eagle of the Russian Federation, different from the double-headed eagle of the Russian Empire and of Moscow, so the Russian Federation, and different from the double-headed eagle of the Duran, which you can see on my magnificent, incredibly comfortable, 100% cotton, a perfect, wonderful polo shirt. We have wonderful polo shirts in our shops. I'm going off on holiday soon to the Alps we're going to go skiing, and of course I will have my polo shirts with me because they are the perfect things to wear if you go to après ski or something of that kind. So wonderful polo shirts, beautifully made. We also have other beautiful shirts. We have amazing t-shirts, long sleeved and short sleeved. I will certainly have my long sleeved t-shirt when I'm out walking the dogs in the Alps. So maybe perfect for that kind of outdoor walking. But we have short sleeve t-shirts too. We've got v-neck shirts, we've got hats, we've got hoodies, we've got stickers, we've got amazing things in our shop. This is the time to buy presents, both for yourself and for your family and for your friends. So what's holding you back? DRN20, as Alex said, is the discount code. Come to our shop, help the Duran. Alex will tell you how.
Just go to the Duran shop, theduranshop.com, and put DRN20 on the checkout page inside the box, the last page before you click the pay button. You'll get 20% off on all our merchandise. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Till next time, everybody, take care.
Thank you.